The Six-Day War was a war between the Egyptians and the Israelis. There was many reasons why this war started. Most importantly, it was because Palestinians were forced out of Israel when it became a country in 1948. But they would not give up the fight. They worked from the north in Golan Heights and started to make small attacks against people in the north of Israel. They even attempted to stop the Jordan River from flowing into Israel so they would have no water for drinking. Israel retaliated by doing small acts of terror themselves to Muslims in Golan Heights in Jordan. One of the most significant attacks they did was in Es-Samu, Jordan, where Israelis believed that there was a Syrian terrorist base out of the Palestinian refugee camp. They completely ravaged the area. Egypt's leader Nasser kept threatening Israel. Nasser wanted all of the Middle East to be 100% Muslim, and so on May 22, 1967, Egyptian Minister of Defense Field Marshal Abdel Hakim Amer cut off the place in Egypt that Israel used to get their boats into the Red Sea. The area was called the Straits of Tiran. The Egyptians were fully aware that if Israel wanted the shipping ground back, they would have to go to war for it. Then 8 days later, King Hussein of Jordan flew to Cairo to confirm an alliance between Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. It was that said the main purpose of this alliance was to obliterate Israel. This action strengthened Egypt's ground, making it more necessary that Israel did something quickly and accurately so the nation would not be completely destroyed. Israel scrambled for help from nations like the U.S., who decided they did not want to get involved, but they did, however, suggest to Israel that if they did not strike first, they would lose the inevitable war. On the days leading up to June 5th, the Egyptians had troops prepare for battle on the ground of the Sinai Peninsula, unknowing that Israel would strike from above. Despite the fact that Israel was greatly outnumbered in men and equipment, they decided to do a preemptive strike. Israel thought it was a great time to attack since a lot of the Egyptian military was busy fighting in the civil war of Yemen. So on June 5, 1967, Israel attacked grounded Egyptian aircrafts with their own aircrafts by dropping bombs on them. They took out more than 300 aircrafts and 100 pilots, taking out pretty much all of the Egyptian Air Force. During this fight, they then conquered the Gaza Strip and Sinai Peninsula. After the attacks, the war might have ended, with Israel obtaining the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip. But then King Hussein heard false news that the Egyptians had been victorious against the Israelis. Therefore, he sent troops to go attack the vulnerable West Jerusalem. What he learned when it was too late was that Israel was actually stronger than ever. On June 6th, Israeli Prime Minister Eshkol then sent troops to force the Jordanian army out of East Jerusalem and the West Bank. Despite Jordan's huge army, the Israeli Air Force came out on top for the second time in 2 days, sending the Jordanian forces back across the Jordan River. They killed 7,000 people in the Jordanian military and injured 12,000 more. And now Israel had control of East Jerusalem and the West Bank. On June 7th, it looked like Israel had won the short war, but then King Hussein and Nasser looked to the Soviet Union for help. The Soviet Union agreed to help them since Nasser had created a lie saying that the U.S. had helped Israel attack Egypt in the first place. This was later known as the Great Lie. The Soviets were unsuccessful in their help to take back the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, and West Bank. Now there was no war, but hardly peace. The tension was still big between Israel, Jordan, and Egypt. On June 8th, the UN told Israel to give back the West Bank and end conflict in Golan Heights. But the Israeli ambassador stalled in order to try and keep control. When Eshkol was on the phone with the UN ambassador, who told him to have his men withdraw from Golan Heights, Eshkol did not want to do this, and so he said that he couldn't understand him due to problems with the phone line. On June 9th, the Syrians made one final attempt to regain Golan Heights with 75,000 men. But they were still unsuccessful, and during this time they lost 2,500 men by the next day. Before any conflict arose between the Soviets and the U.S., the Soviets concluded that the U.S. was too far away from Egypt when the June 5th attacks occurred. Therefore, the Soviets backed out, not wanting to start unnecessary conflict. There was tension for 40 years between the Israelis and their Islam neighbors. However, in 1978, Israel returned the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt to make peace. There was a peace treaty in 1978, Then in 2005, they gave back the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, which is now a home for Palestinians.
Three things, but when the war started, I was I really don't know what happened, but I was disconnected. As it started, I was disconnected automatically. I really don't know why, what happened in the tank, that I was disconnected from the whole group. But when I saw the group moving, I moved with them all the way. It was night. It was starting the war at night, and immediately we had a battle with the Egyptians. I was in the south bound, and over there, it was the whole war. I was without connection. I just, with my intuition, I just followed everybody. And at night it was really very difficult because when we stopped, we had all the Egyptians around, coming out from their how do you call that?
Hiding, kind of.
Hiding point, and it was very difficult. It was really very, very dangerous. So we had to be all the time awake. And when the morning came, I saw that everybody is moving, so I moved with them also as well. I tried to be, as close as possible to the first tanks, in order to be able to communicate, because I couldn't get any help from no one. Because in the war you cannot get any help unless if there is someone. And we had a war for 4 days. We had a war for 4 days, exactly, and on and off, and then by the end of the war, actually my brother was in the north, and I was really very anxious what happened to him, and he was very anxious what happened to me, and we didn't have any connection at all until the 5th day. And then when we gathered together, with all the tank together, all of a sudden I had connection. I really don't know. I didn't have connection as it started. When it finished the war, I had connection. So my captain, my captain said, "Solly, I really don't know what happened to you, but it is a miracle that you are here without us. I thought that we lost you already because we didn't have any connection with you, and we did not, in the war you don't know which were."
October 22nd, 1967. The resolution basically states that the region should live in peace. Israel supported the resolution because it accepted the right for Israel's to live in peace within secure and recognized boundaries free from the threats or acts of force. Eventually, everyone supported Resolution 242. The Palestine Liberation Organization rejected it until 1988 because it lacked explicit references to Palestinians. Although Resolution 242 was never fully carried out, the significance of its diplomatic efforts to change the Middle East make it a greatly important document.